Alright. Last time in the studio, we learned how to draw effective cover art. This time, I'm here to finish remastering the first comic I've ever created, 15 years ago. In this video, I'm going to go over the 3 most basic steps to drawing comics, as well as the crucial materials you'll need to finish the job. Let's do it! But before we do any of that, let's get started with the sketch. Before diving into creating your comic, you need to have a clear vision about the characters you're showcasing to your audience. In this case, the drawings are 15 years old, and by now my style has drastically changed. I decided to revamp the original main character's design, choosing between gritty shonen realism and balancing with the original cute design of the dinosaur. That's the great thing about manga, you can choose to use both styles in your comic to differentiate between serious and comedic moments. I also practiced sketching the realistic anatomy of a dinosaur to grasp the portrayal of features I wanted to keep in Dino Ninja's new manga design. This stage of creating a comic is called a character design sheet. Now that my vision is clear and I've practiced how to consistently draw my character, I can move on to making the vision a reality. Step 1 is storyboarding. Using a separate page, draw the sequence of your pages and plan out your comic panels. My number 1 pro tip for this storyboarding is don't overthink. There are millions of ways to map out comic panels, and if you're a perfectionist like me, it's easy to never be satisfied with the layout. So don't overthink the page, especially if you're just beginning on your comic book journey. Design a layout that fulfills the purpose of your storytelling. The panels should flow as you turn the pages of your comic. Large action panels are used to focus attention on your desired actions or characters, and small panels can be used for dialogue, establishing settings, or just moving the story along. If you're a real professional, like these people I'm showcasing here, you can utilize the comic panels with your page flow to build suspense and then surprise your audience at the turn of a page. Storyboarding also consists of dialogue. Since you clicked this video, I'm assuming you already have a story in mind that you want to tell the world. Now it's time for you to write that story, which includes writing dialogue for your characters. What are they going to say? Who are they saying it to? In case you didn't know, dialogue bubbles indicate a character is speaking. After setting up your panels, map out the location of dialogue bubbles on your page. Count the bubbles, then in the space next to your storyboard, mark down the sequence, and finally write your dialogue. This is a really easy way of keeping track of how the story is being paced as you turn your pages. Luckily, the original comic provides a strong foundation, and my overall goal is to make changes as little as possible, creating a nearly identical shot-by-shot redraw of the original pages and comic panels. Step 2. When you're done sketching, storyboarding, and planning, start drawing. Now, you can draw comics anywhere, in your notebook, regular printer paper, or even poster paper. But if you want to potentially get published professionally, I highly recommend drawing with the following materials. A4 deleter paper is the standard for manga pages. It's used by Japanese mangaka, and I've heard it's used as Shonen Jump standard. The edge of the paper shows measurements that mark the middle of the page, which helps you align panels perfectly. This paper is meant to be scanned and printed, so the page also includes the limit of what will be included in the final scan. The material is conducive to ink pens as well as Copic markers. However, I don't recommend using anything super heavy that has the potential to bleed through with this paper. It does a pretty good job of preventing bleed through, but keep this in mind. Use your standard straight edge for those straight lines to finish off your panel layout. I recommend something see-through, hence my see-through ruler, my favorite one, so you don't accidentally draw over something you didn't mean to. Especially when you're inking in, this really helps that. Now draw. Unless you have balls of steel, I suggest you draw first in pencil, so you can add details and erase any mistakes later. All the greats first start their work with a pencil sketch. You don't need a fancy pencil, but I do recommend a fine, sharp pencil tip. I prefer using mechanical pencils for this reason, and even added a rubber handle to soften the grip. But feel free to use a regular number 2 with a good sharpener, whatever is comfortable for you. It's not about what materials you're using really, it's about how you're using them. Personally, I tend to sketch with very heavy lines especially when I'm getting into the zone. So I purposefully erase the final layer. If you think about it, this technique of erasing the last layer is the equivalent of lowering the opacity on a digital sketch, like on Procreate or any other app. This is like lowering the opacity on a digital sketch before adding another layer of line work, which is exactly my intention. I'm erasing so I can evenly put out my line work. Speaking of line work, step 3, ink it in. Ink pens. In my good opinion, you can use any as long as you're consistent with their use throughout. What does this mean? It means use the same brand for all of your pages. So if you're using a G pen on page 1, try to continue using your G pens throughout the rest of your comic. If you want quality brushwork, I recommend getting manga or comic brand ink pens like the following that I'm showcasing here. Not your average super wet, thin Sharpie. It's not going to get the desired result you want. Keep in mind, once you're done inking your page in, you're going to have to erase the pencil sketch. So make sure the pen type isn't gel or you risk streaking the ink on your page if you don't let it dry well enough. For comics or manga, make sure you have access to a range of brush sizes and types. Dramatic and thick brushstrokes add variety to your manga page. But more importantly, thick brushstrokes emphasize action and emotions. See here examples in your favorite comics. Another pro tip for your comic, when inking in your word bubbles, you don't have to limit yourself to one design. If a character is yelling or screaming dramatically, you can make your word bubble all spiky and extra, kind of like what you read in your favorite fight scenes. Definitely the best part about drawing your own comics is reading other comics as reference. So that's exactly what I like to do. I'll grab something off of my bookshelf, take a look, see if I want to implement the same technique or even the same panel layout. Find the flow that works for you and get started. Now you'll notice here in the video, I'm actually using a curved edge, if that's correct. I don't know where I got this from, but it's definitely been one of my favorite investments. It helps out with drawing curved lines if you're not confident enough to do it freehand. If your work isn't published, don't get discouraged. This is your chance to get it published now. Start now so you can get it published later. There's no point in waiting. At one point, you're gonna have to pick up the pen and pencil and just get straight to work. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really happy with the evolution of the comic right now. 15 years later, you can definitely see my own personal inspiration. I'm getting from One Punch Man, I'm getting Bleach vibes. It's everything that I've learned up until this point. It's everything that I've watched and learned up until this point, and I'm very proud of it. So you will see in your own manga style some other influences from your favorite artists. And that's totally fine. Everyone has to start somewhere. Everyone has to be inspired at some point. Being a manga artist really takes a lot of determination, discipline, and patience. What you see here condensed into a 10-minute video honestly took me 5 days, nearly a week. And that's because I'm trying to balance a full-time job with this passion of mine. I want to get a story out there, and like many other people, the dream is to have something published eventually. Or you might just enjoy doing it for yourself at home. And finally, what I haven't included in this video, but will be another video, how to actually scan your manga page into a computer, into a digital medium, so you can add all the extra details like the dialogue and like background gradients. See you next Monday.